everyone. This week we're going to be doing some standard. Eldritch Moon was just released on Magic Online, and I'm in there. Not a lot of new cards in my deck. I do have some Liliana the Last Hopes, and basically playing a black-white control deck. My article last week kind of talked about how you could use the black cards to beat Bant Company, and that's kind of what some people are doing. The black control decks are probably the second best performing archetype in Standard right now, and I think Liliana is a big part of that, even though this deck doesn't have a whole lot of creatures. We have a singleton, one Linvala, but I think that's okay because really what Liliana does is just kind of like pad your life total, and it's kind of like this prison term type of card where you just kind of get to lock down whatever one of their creatures that they have in play for a while. So basically, when you have Liliana in 3, you end up taking a lot less damage. Basically, like, they end up attacking you with a lot less power over the course of the game, and that either means that your life total is higher or your planeswalkers are not under as much pressure, which is pretty nice because this deck has a bunch of planeswalkers in it, and it also has a lot of effects that cost life, like Read the Bones and Anguish Unmaking. So despite not having any creatures and Liliana's -2 ability basically being blank text, I feel like this card is just great in Standard. It's also pretty good in Modern. I played it last weekend, and the +1 is just so good. And it is not all that uncommon to actually ultimate your 3-mana Planeswalker. So Liliana is a nice addition. The black cards are well positioned right now with basically half the field being Bant Company, at least on the SCG tour. So yeah, Liliana's a good addition. Other than that, Grasp of Darkness and Languish are the two best removal spells, I would say. Grasp mainly because of colorless creatures and Selfless Spirit. Selfless Spirit might actually be the biggest reason, at least right now. It lets you grasp like their Tireless Tracker and just get around the Selfless Spirit, being able to protect it from something like an Ultimate Price, which is really nice. So having Grasp and Languish is kind of the backbone of this deck. We do need a couple more 2-mana removal spells, so we have Ultimate Prices, also some Ruinous Paths and Anguished Unmakings for Planeswalkers and other hard-to-deal with permanents. There's some Oath of Lilianas, which I really like the idea of, both because it's a decent removal spell, but like this deck does have a bunch of Planeswalkers, and getting an extra 2/2 for every Planeswalker you play is kind of nuts because it becomes a lot easier to protect them. So having Oath of Liliana is really nice. And yeah, I don't know. Liliana, Gideon, Obnixilis, Sorin. Most of these decks play like an extra Ob or an extra Sorin. I'm kind of low on the high-end stuff, which is basically a concession to me making room for the new cards, Liliana and Oath of Liliana. So, I don't know. I don't really like having 3 6-mana cards in my deck, so there's only one Sorin and one Linvala. I think one Linvala is excellent in the main deck. The second Sorin is kind of whatever. Like, it's fine, but Linvala, I think, is one of the best, if not the actual best card against Bant Company. So, yeah, there's the Singleton. Then we have some Transgress the Minds to kind of protect ourselves. This, against control decks, you're basically going to be taking, like, their threats or their answer to your threat. Basically just trying to, like, punch a hole. Against Bant Company, you, in the post-board games, are going to be taking probably, like, a Reflector Mage or something to protect your Kalitas, but in Game 1, it's mostly just going after their companies or they're threatening 3-drops like either Spell Queller or Tireless Tracker. Read the Bones. I'm only playing 3 because we have other 3-drops in the deck now. I do think Read the Bones is very, very good, but the format is pretty fast. This is the heaviest card pool that we're going to have for this iteration of Standard, which means the decks kind of like all get filled out, and they all have plenty to do on curve. Their cards are all very powerful, and I'm not sure if we can actually spend the time just kind of messing around with Read the Bones, so I did cut one in favor of things like Oath of Liliana and Liliana, which actually affect the board. The 4th Read the Bones is in the sideboard, though, because I think that card is phenomenal in at least some matchups, or if you're on the play. And, yeah, 4 Languish, another Planar Outburst, just to have another sweeper, but nothing too spicy in the main deck. You'll notice that my mana base is pretty simple. I have 26 land, which is one more than a lot of people play. And I also don't have any colorless utility lands, but I don't know, man. Grasp of Darkness, Liliana, Languish. These all require double black. You basically need like BB in your opening hand to compete. And then there are things like Gideon and Planar Outburst and even Linvala that you need double white. So I did not want to skimp on any colored mana symbols. It's possible that you could cut a Plains for a Blighted Fen or something, but I didn't really want to do that. Also didn't really want to play Secure the Waste. I feel like that card is just pretty weak, and we have other ways to actually protect our Planeswalkers now, and you don't necessarily need that big finish against control decks, especially since like Liliana is kind of this thing that comes down and threatens to ultimate. Pretty similar to Nissa, the Voice of Zendikar? Yeah, that one. So yeah, basically being very conservative in my mana base, which is, you know, it's kind of my MO. It's sort of what I do. As for the sideboard, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sold on this sideboard entirely, but it has a bunch of cards I like. Basically, what I think I'm missing is a sort of more threat-dense approach to certain matchups. Like, you'll see people with Thought-Knot Seer, Eldrazi Displacer, what have you. And I basically don't have any of that. So I have a lot of Duresses. These are good against other control decks, obviously. If there are decks like the green-blue Crush deck, I don't know. Like, is that a tough matchup for this deck? I'm guessing not. But, like, you know, having a third Duress there helps. Basically, I think the format is Bant Company and kind of control-y decks that are trying to beat up on Bant Company, and the third Duress rather helps a lot. So I like being able to beat those mirror-ish type matches when I play against them. So 3 Duress, Read the Bones, another Ob Nixilis. That's kind of my package against them. If they have a lot of permanents, like they are Planeswalker based, like this sort of mirror match would be, then the Quarantine Fields come in. If you're playing against something like Boss Humans, we've got a couple Deadweights. Another ultimate price for Bant Company and similar decks. 2 Kalitas, kind of just like as a juke against the creature decks in, like, they might just want to like board out the majority, if not all of their removal against you. I imagine that they'll keep in all the Reflector Mages just to clear out like a Knight ally to be able to attack Gideon, but I think Kalitas is still a solid kind of juke against them. Just gives you a different sort of threat and a card that can actually take over the game if you get to untap with it. Also, you know, works pretty well with like Liliana's Emblem for whatever that's worth. That actually has come up a few times. I've seen it. Second Linvala, which is just phenomenal, and a couple Hallowed Moonlights, which are obviously for Bant Company, but can also be used against Ishkana. So, that's it. That's the deck. Black-White Control. Not playing the Angel stuff quite yet. I do feel like the Planeswalker portion of the deck is a little bit stronger. When half the field is playing Reflector Mage, I don't really want Giselle in my deck. So, that's why we're sticking with Planeswalkers. So, let's get to the games.